Now, she wants us not to sell this one-room apartment, but to let her live there until she passes away, in exchange for which she is ready to make a will in our favor. And she is 57 years old, her health is good, she can live for another 30 years. It is not known whether my sister and I will live until then, says Elizaveta. Well, that's not even the point. Sophia and I have our own families and our own worries, and since we have received this inheritance, we count on this money and make plans. Sophia needs to educate her sons. She's raising them alone. I plan to help my daughter. We have already been informed that they will have a wedding in the spring. I will give this money to my daughter for the down payment, and the future matchmakers will also give not a small amount to the young people. And who's to blame for Vera losing everything by her own stupidity? She was warned, discouraged from this step. She did not listen to anyone. I pity her, like any naive person who can't make wise decisions and gets into trouble. But she could still find something for herself, even if not in the capital, but somewhere farther away. In her position is no longer up to whims. Vera, Elizabeth, and Sophia are cousins whose mothers were siblings. Vera is 57 years old, Elizabeth is 51, and Sophia is 46. Elizabeth is the only one of them who is now married. She has a daughter. Sophia has been divorced for a long time and is raising two sons who are in the 8th and 11th grades. Vera was officially divorced once, and the second time, in fact. The marriage has not yet been dissolved, but her husband has already kicked her out of the house with her belongings. She still lives in the same inherited apartment she shares with her cousins. Each has a third of the property. Vera has gone through one official divorce, and she has effectively separated from her second husband as well. He has already kicked her out of the house, although formally the marriage has not yet been dissolved. At the moment, Vera lives in an inherited apartment, which she received in shared ownership together with her sisters. Each of them has 1/3. She has been there for 3 months, and her aunt died 5 months ago. We gave her the keys and told her it was a temporary solution. The sale of the apartment cannot be postponed, so Vera will have to decide soon. The cousins inherited from their aunt. The sisters' mothers had another sister who left no heirs and lived her last years as a widow in a small apartment in the capital. The aunt was cared for by all of them together. She was not bedridden, so the help consisted of visiting her, cleaning the apartment, ironing the laundry, making her doctor's appointments and accompanying her, as well as buying medicine and groceries and whatever else was needed. For the sake of objectivity, it must be said that although Vera had recently been living out of town, she tried to participate in her aunt's life. After all, everyone knew that the apartment would be inherited by the 3 sisters, and it was inconvenient to ignore this situation. So she visited her. Vera is the only one of her sisters who never became a mother. She lived with her first husband for 14 years, hoping for a child, but the dream never came true. Their marriage broke up, and the spouse, having started a new life, became a father. For a long time, Vera lived alone in the apartment left by her late mother. It was a small one-room apartment, but 8 years ago, Vera met her future second husband. The man lived in a room of a communal apartment, also having gone through a divorce, and his adult son had long since left his native home. They found each other. Sophia and Elizabeth did not like Vera's new roommate, but they did not dare to express their doubts to the woman when she rediscovered the joy of love and a second youth. A few months later, Vera decided to legalize her relationship with George. At this point, her sisters felt it necessary to warn her by asking the question, "Why do you want to do this? You won't be able to have any more children together, so why put a stamp in your passport?" In addition, the aunt also expressed a similar opinion to her niece. These words made Vera think. She decided that her sisters might have their own interests in discouraging her from getting married. In reply to this, she could not refrain from rebuking her. "You seem to be hoping that after me, my one-room apartment will go to you or your children, just as it will be with your aunt's apartment. You have already mentally buried me in a distant corner of life, where fates intertwine." Vera tied her life to Georgie. 2 years passed, and she committed an act that became fatal for her. They sold their apartments, which were their property before. Lisa and Sonia, Vera's sisters, decided not to interfere in order to avoid further recriminations. They did not know how the transaction had actually been formalized. Georgie had bought the house from his relative, giving him the money, and the latter, in turn, had made a gift. All the money had been transferred in cash, and this was some time after the sale of their previous apartments. Didn't it alarm her that she was not mentioned in the contract at all? Elizabeth shakes her head. What's that got to do with us? If Vera decided to do that, it's her choice. She's a grown woman, shouldn't she think with her head? Sophia offered to talk to her, but I refused. She already accused us once of pursuing our own selfish interests. Vera moved to the suburbs of Moscow and got to work and to her aunt's house by train. In her own words, she lived quite happily with Georgi and even managed to look after his son's grandchildren. However, she soon called and, sobbing, said that her things had been left at work and she had nowhere to go because Georgie had brought a new young woman. After handing her the keys to her recently departed aunt's apartment and trying to support her, a few days later, when the shock seemed to have subsided, Vera began to hint that her sisters had a place to live, and she, poor thing, had nowhere to go. The hint was taken at once, and Elizabeth and Sophia were quick to set the record straight. We will not give up our shares. Then Vera offered another option. Say, for two get everything, formalize their shares, but let her live in this apartment. However, this option did not suit the heiresses. The memory of our mother's spell pressed a tear, let, and even rebukes, says Elizaveta. And in the end, we are to blame for the fact that her aunt did not explain all the nuances as she should. She sincerely believes that we are responsible for her own mistakes, so, in her opinion, it's our fault for not talking her out of doing something reckless. We've decided to let her deal with it. Yes, she will have to leave her job in the capital, although there is an opportunity to work until retirement. Rent a house in a quieter place, to register her at home so that she can receive the capital's pension. Neither I nor Sophia will not agree. It's too risky to get involved with people like her. She is currently registered at her husband's son's place of residence, but I don't think it will last long.